Some people are just sounding boards, but the real vision, the spark that has to come from one place, I'm just so grateful it came from me. The words echoed through the cavernous ballroom, slick and practiced. On stage, the spotlight caught the dust motes dancing around Zane's head, creating a cheap halo. He clutched the heavy glass trophy for Best New Podcast, and the camera zoomed in on his beatific, fraudulent smile. Down in the audience, sitting at a table paid for by a company that thought he was a solo genius, I didn't flinch. I just smiled back and sent a single text to my lawyer, Valerie. It's time. We met at a media mixer 5 years ago, a loud, sticky event where everyone was performing. Zane was the loudest. He had a magnetic energy, a fire hose of ideas about narrative storytelling and sound design that felt revolutionary. I was the quiet one in the corner, the one who actually knew how to use the editing software and structure a season. We bonded over a mutual hatred for true crime podcasts that used cheesy sound effects. Our first real brainstorming session was at a minimalist coffee shop called Urban Drip, where we mapped out the entire concept for our show, unseen structures, on a stack of flimsy napkins. The energy was real. I felt like I'd found my creative soulmate. First red flag was small, almost charming. We agreed to split the cost of a set of professional-grade microphones, about $1,200. I paid for it on my credit card. When I sent him the Venmo request, he just laughed. Oh man, I completely forgot. My head's just so in the clouds, the big picture. He never paid it. I told myself it didn't matter. We were building something. I was investing in us. The next 2 years were a blur of creation. Those were the golden days, spent in a tiny rented studio that always smelled like stale coffee and ambition. We celebrated our first 10,000 downloads with a bottle of Lagavulin 16, a luxury we couldn't afford. Our shared Slack channel was a chaotic symphony of inside jokes, audio files, and frantic messages. At 3 a.m. we were a team. Or so I thought. The imbalance was gradual. I was the one pulling the 14-week-long editing sprints for each season, meticulously layering soundscapes until they were perfect. I managed the production calendar on Notion. I handled the ad buys. I wrote 90% of the interview questions. Zane's role became the vibe. He was the face, the voice. He took the glamorous meetings, charming sponsors with stories I had researched and written. He started referring to unseen structures as my podcast in interviews. When I gently pushed back, he'd deploy his signature gaslighting. It's just shorthand, Quinn. You know you're the engine, but people need a personality to connect with. Don't be so sensitive. The discovery was accidental, a digital slip-up. I was searching our shared Google Drive for a tax form and found a folder he'd cryptically named Project Phoenix. Inside was a single PDF. It was a development deal with a major audio network, a deal for a solo project that was, beat for beat, the idea for our next season. It was signed by Zane alone, dated 6 weeks prior. The advance was for $85,000. My name was nowhere. Not in the credits, not in the financials, not even in the acknowledgments. For the next 4 weeks, I said nothing. I became an archaeologist of our collaboration. I used a data recovery tool to pull deleted Slack messages, finding dozens where he'd praise my ideas only to pitch them as his own days later. I downloaded the entire project history from our Notion board, a clear digital record showing 312 critical tasks completed by me versus 28 by him. I found the original time-stamped audio files on my backup drive, the raw tape where you could hear me directing him. No, Zane, try the line again, but with less performative wonder. Make it sound real. Each file was a tiny, perfect piece of evidence. Breaking point came not in private, but under the hot lights of a panel at the Podcast Movement Conference in Denver. The moderator, a woman named Maya, asked Zane about his creative process. He leaned into the microphone, radiating false humility. The thing is, deep collaboration is a bit of a myth in this field. One person has the vision. I'm the architect. Quinn is wonderful, absolutely essential with the technical stuff, the scaffolding. You don't give the Stonemason credit for the cathedral, do you? The crowd of industry peers chuckled. My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. In that single public moment, every doubt I had rationalized away, every small betrayal I had forgiven, coalesced into a single hard point of clarity. The hurt was gone. In its place was a quiet, humming engine of purpose. I watched the live stream camera pan across his smug face. A permanent public record. Perfect. A little detail, the live stream would become the cornerstone of his undoing. The next day, I found Valerie Rostova online. She was an IP lawyer with a reputation for being a shark in a tailored suit. Her retainer was $7,500. It was nearly everything I had, but as I transferred the money, I felt no fear. It was an investment in my own name. Her advice was simple. Don't confront him. Don't warn him. Let him build his cathedral in the sky. Higher he climbs, the harder he'll fall. The preparation was meticulous. We assembled a digital fortress of proof. There were the time-stamped audio files, the Notion project logs, the recovered Slack messages. There was a sworn affidavit from a freelance sound designer we'd hired, confirming I was his sole point of contact and had paid all his invoices from my personal account. The most beautiful piece of evidence, though, was a pure coincidence. Valerie found that the network Zane had signed with had a notoriously strict creator integrity clause in all their contracts. A boilerplate bit of legalese about honest representation that Zane, in his egomaniacal rush, had clearly never read. The trap was the Vox Awards. We both knew he was nominated, and his ego would never let him lose. Weeks before the ceremony, Valerie sent a quiet preliminary IP inquiry letter to the network's legal department, giving them a heads up without revealing our full hand. We wanted them to be watching. I nearly got caught once. Zane came into the studio while I had an email from Valerie on my screen. I slammed my laptop shut, muttering something about a dead battery. My heart hammered against my ribs for an hour straight, but he bought it. He was too busy planning his acceptance speech. Now here we were, Zane on stage, basking in the glow of a trophy he hadn't earned. As he launched into his thank yous, my pre-scheduled tweet went live. At the exact same second, Valerie hit send on an email to the network's general counsel, attaching our entire neatly organized dossier of evidence. The tweet was simple. It said, "Every structure has an architect, and it has a stonemason. Here's the story of both." The link led to a clean, elegant website I'd built. It was a timeline of the creation of unseen structures. It had embedded audio clips of the raw recordings, my voice clearly directing the sessions. It had screenshots of our project board, my name next to task after task. The first wave of phones lit up across the ballroom. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Zane started to falter, seeing the shifting atmosphere. Then came the killer proof. The final item on the website was a 30-second screen recording. It showed our joint business account, where our early sponsorship money was deposited. It showed a single withdrawal of $18,400, draining it completely, followed by an immediate transfer receipt from Zane's personal account to a Porsche dealership. The date was the day after he had told me we were broke and couldn't afford to hire an assistant. His face, projected on the massive screens on either side of the stage, went from confident to confused to utterly, nakedly panicked. His eyes desperately scanned the crowd and found mine. He mouthed the words, frantic and silent. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. I just slowly raised my glass of champagne in a quiet, final toast. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Vox Awards scandal was trending on Twitter before Zane had even left the stage. The network's PR team went into meltdown. My phone vibrated for 24 hours straight with calls and texts from former colleagues, friends, and even strangers, most of them starting with the same 5 words. I always knew something was off. The network invoked the creator integrity clause. They voided his $85,000 contract and sent a formal demand for the return of the first half of the advance, which he had already spent. Valerie, my shark, negotiated my settlement. Received full, uncontested ownership of the entire Unseen Structures back catalog and a $45,000 nuisance fee from the network to make the problem go away. I saw Zane about 6 months later. He was delivering takeout on a scuffed-up e-bike, a shapeless gray hoodie pulled over his head. The Porsche was gone. He looked thin, tired, and anonymous. He passed right by me, completely lost in the big picture. I relaunched the podcast under a new name. It's smaller now, more intimate, but it's mine. Every word, every sound, every decision. I work from a new apartment with a huge window that looks out over the city, and the peaceful silence is the best sound I've ever engineered. I learned that my trust isn't a weakness to be exploited, but a resource to be invested in those who are willing to build something together. The show's new tagline is simple, built by the Stonemason. He was the architect of his own ruin. I just supplied the materials.